Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today, our guest is Dr. Guy Baker, who is the founder and managing director of Wealth Teams Alliance. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here, Gary.
So, Dr. Baker, tell us about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Well, like I tell my clients, when we first meet, I said, I'm unmanageable and unemployable. I've never done anything else but this. I started when I was in college. I've never had a job, never had a salary.
That's interesting.
So, and what, it's just always been about trying to help people understand and learn about their financial options, and then give them, a diversified portfolio, if you will, of options that they can choose from, and then help them with the implementation based on what they want to do.
Right. So now, what's a little bit different with your firm than a lot of others is that you guys call yourself wealth coaches. How is that different than somebody who says that they're a financial planner or a financial advisor?
Well, what I have found in my experience is that most financial advisors have a fastball. They've got one or two things that they really focus on. It might be retirement, it might be college education, it could be helping people just grow their wealth. There's a number of different avenues that financial planning can take. We're much more holistic than that. We look at both sides of the financial statement. We look at the liabilities, the risks, as well as the opportunities to grow money, and we integrate those together. So we could work with a business owner on their succession plan, retaining key people. We could work with them on a pension plan, a 401k. We could do estate planning, helping them reduce estate taxes. So we've got the skills and the experience and the knowledge to be able to help on the whole waterfront.
Oh, that's great, because I think that's, many times I preach on the show about making sure you have a team of people to help you, and you guys have the whole team there to be able to help people.
Yeah, but I think there's an important side of that, Gary, that I would definitely want your listeners to understand, is that we're not trying to be the expert in all those areas. We just have a deep understanding and experience with them, and we work with their attorney and their accountant, or help them put a comprehensive team together. So we're not trying to be everything in that process.
Right. But I guess going back to the whole coaching thing, and many times I kind of say that I want to be your quarterback. And that's kind of what I think that you guys are doing, is you're helping them along the way and helping pull their team together to make sure everybody's kind of moving in one direction.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. One of the things that's distinctive about a coach is that a coach tries to pull the answers out of their client as opposed to give them. A consultant
Right.
gives answers, all right, and implements. A coach is working with the people to figure out what it is they want to do and help them feel confident that the steps that they're taking are the right steps for them.
That's good. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people make when it comes to gaining their wealth or investing?
Well, I'd say there are probably at least two mistakes that I think are common there. Number one is just the nature of man, if you will, man or woman, right? But people,
Right.
is that they're so busy being successful, they don't have time really to pay attention to these types of matters. So as a result of that, they concentrate on making money instead of keeping it and growing it. So I'd say that That's probably the most common mistake that we find, because they just don't want to take the time to look at it. They don't know who to delegate the responsibility to. You know, it's like I said to one owner the other day, I said, you know, you've got this wonderful team of executives and you delegate all of the responsibilities of running the company to this team, yet you try and take on the whole responsibility of managing your wealth and your estate plan and your business succession yourself. Why wouldn't you delegate that as well? So that's one mistake. The other mistake is that I truly find most people have no idea how to invest. You know, they instinctively feel like, you know, they've got one or two things that they understand and know, but when it comes to diversification, they have no idea. And most people, from my experience, chase return in the market as opposed to waiting for it to come to them.
Okay. Now, what are some of the questions when clients are coming into you? What are some of the questions that you wish that they would ask, but they're not?
Well, I think that most people haven't had enough experience or knowledge to really even know what to ask, frankly. But I think one of the differences that I've found is that it's very difficult for them to distinguish who to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And because they don't know who to trust, they tend to trust the person they like the most.
Right.
And while it's important to have that chemistry in that relationship, oftentimes that chemistry and relationship, that comfort, if you will, overrides any good sense in what they should be doing. My job as a coach is to make them uncomfortable. And if I make them uncomfortable and they want to go to somebody that makes them comfortable, it doesn't mean that they're going to get the best service or the best answers.
Right. Now, when you say that you make them uncomfortable, how is it that you do this?
Well, there's three things that three questions that most people can't answer. And when you start asking questions that they can't answer, you know, you have to be very careful with that, because a lot of people are very sensitive and they don't want to feel like you're making them stupid, you know, which I never want to do. That's not the point, but they oftentimes will go there anyway. And so that's where the discomfort comes in, is because you're asking questions that they really don't know the answers to or haven't really thought about. Now, that doesn't mean they can't. It just means they haven't, because they're so busy being successful. But those three questions are, number one is, you know, what's your number? How much money do you really need to have in order to be able to feel comfortable and confident in retirement that you're going to make it through life expectancy plus 5 or 7 or 10 years? Because most people are living beyond their life expectancy if they've got good health and they've taken care of themselves. The second question is, you know, given what my number is, how much more do I have to be setting aside in order to be able to reach that number? And then the third question is, how do I do it? I mean, where do I invest it? What is the best investment program for me that gives me the highest probability of reaching my objectives and sustaining my income in a stable, consistent manner through retirement?
I mean, I never, you know, kind of sit back and think about that. And I know lots of times when you probably ask the people about what their number is, even if they've thought about it, they probably still don't know truly what their number is. How do you help them come up with, you know, what that number is?
Well, that's just a fact-finding process. You have to look at what their lifestyle is, what they want their lifestyle to be in the future. You got to extrapolate, you know, the medical risks that are involved now with dementia and long-term care. You know, there are a lot of factors that go into that. And of course, the number that we come up with isn't going to be the real number, you know, but at least it's closer to the number that the one that they're working with.
I think it's,
I mean, just, you know, think about it. If you need $200,000 a year in retirement and you're going to live 20 years, let's say, that's $4 million.
right.
So you can discount that with some type of, you know, tax adjusted cash flow, but still it's probably way more than they think it is.
Right. And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. And I think lots of times when people think about retirement, they're not thinking, like you said, about the long-term care and things like that. You know, and I think it's probably one of their biggest fears is, am I going to have enough money in retirement?
Yeah, exactly. And, that's one of the things that I think gives me the greatest joy in working with people is they come in scared, wondering if they've got enough and, what their retirement years are going to be looking like, because they know, that there's going to come a point in time where they can't make any more money and they've got to make what they have last. And so what I'm able to do then is to take their current assets. We can figure out what they're likely to grow to, what their other income streams are, and show them that if they're reasonable in their expectations, that they have more than enough to make it through retirement.
Right. And I think that your idea of asking questions is great, because I know many times, when I have, new clients come in and I start asking questions of them, they are surprised that somebody's actually asking questions and wanting to know what they think and feel and so forth, because they're just used to, like you said, somebody being a consultant and just telling them things instead of actually listening to what they want. So in that vein, what from helping people get to where they want to be, when do you usually get a chance to start working with them?
Well, the process generally is an introductory session. And one of the things that I've found is that there are basically two types of people that come in. People who are right-brained and left-brained. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The left-brainers are very mathematical, probability oriented. They believe in formulas. They believe in present value and future value and, interest assumptions and what have you. The right-brainers are all over the place, and they're very emotional. And so what we've found is that most of the people who work with us are left-brainers. We have very few right-brainers, and it's not because we don't love right-brainers. They're wonderful people and very creative. The problem is that they get scared, and when they get scared, they get drawn off to the latest shiny thing, and so they'll bounce around, and they don't have what I would call the staying power, the long-term loyalty that's needed in order to be able to make it through. Whereas the left-brainers, understand markets go up, markets go down, everything's not perfect, it's not going to always work out the way you think it's going to work out, but that they trust the system, they trust the process. So anyway, to answer your question then, I want to get to know them well enough in that first meeting to know whether they're the right-brainers or the left-brainers, okay? And if they're the left-brainers, usually what I'll do is give them some type of an education in terms of what we do, how we do it, how we manage money. And if they're comfortable with that, then they'll usually say, well, what's our next step? And our next step would be then to do a good fact finder, figure out exactly where they're going and what they want to do. I had a client opportunity here not too long ago, definitely a left-brainer. He'd mapped out his whole entire life, and he wanted somebody to verify that his numbers were right. He didn't care about the investment philosophy. And so we didn't have a match because, unfortunately, for him, I think, is that he was placing much more importance on the spreadsheet and the numbers than he was on how he was going to get there. But and so as a result of that, we didn't engage. But so there has to be two things. There has to be, an understanding and reliance on the forecasts, and then there has to be an understanding and reliance on the process, the investment process.
I kind of what I just heard you say is that you guys build relationships with people, and they are not a transaction to you, which I think is important.
Absolutely, Gary. That's true. I consider everybody we work with a dear friend. I'm committed to them, and I want to do everything I possibly can to make sure they're successful.
Yeah, I think people, need to understand, and I like it that, you said, hey, this just wasn't a match for us, and you don't take them on, because many people would try to take them on as a client and then try to change them. And I think that it's good. And to me, that shows that you guys have a successful business because of the fact that, you know, you just don't take everybody. And I think that that's important. I think same thing as an individual, if they don't feel that it's a good fit between the two of you, that they don't engage. So it's kind of both ways.
Yeah, totally both ways. And frankly, it's more their way not wanting to work with us than us not wanting to work with them. The fellow I was just telling you about, I would have gladly worked with him, but he, didn't feel confident and comfortable in the process because he wanted us to focus on something that really is not relevant, and he felt it was.
Right, right. So you've been doing this a long time.
A long time, yes.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out? If you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
So when I started in this business, I was in college, okay, and worked part-time while I was going to college. And then when I got an MBA and finished graduate school was when I came in full-time. And I really had a dream that we would do both sides of the financial statement. The problem was back then, there wasn't any education and there wasn't any real knowledge that I felt confident with and was ethical. And I'm not saying it was unethical, but ethical in my value system, where I could sit with you, Gary, and say, look, you do this, and I know this is going to work out for you if you stick with this over the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever the time frame would have been. I couldn't find that. So I set that aside and just concentrated on the risk side of the financial statement. And it wasn't until like 25 years later that I learned what we do today and was, taught a methodology based on 5 Nobel Prizes that we've followed rigorously ever since. And in fact, the reason I got a PhD at the age of 70 was because the program was based on exactly how we manage money. And it gave me a chance to really dig into the rudiments of what we do. So to answer your question, my younger self, I wish I had understood investments and money management as I do today when I was 25. Because if I'd understood that, we would be, have an entirely different practice probably today than I have. But, that's not mine to control. I fully believe in a supreme God that, has a plan for all of our lives.
That's true. And we have to understand that we don't always have control, right?
No, yeah. I'm not in control of what I'm not in control of.
Right. If I guess from one of the things you said earlier was about, finding people that you trust and making sure that, that you work with them. How can somebody go about finding out, if whoever, their coach or their advisor, that they're thinking about working with, how can they check on them to make sure that, they don't have any, bad things that they've done in their past or anything like that? How can somebody check out somebody to find out?
Well, there is the FINRA website you can go on and you can look up the advisor and see what their track record is. The problem is a lot of times that doesn't really answer the question whether you can trust them, but it certainly will show if there are any issues that came up in their career that, needs to be explained. And, I just know personally, you can get things on your FINRA report that aren't true,
Right.
And you can't correct them. So you have to have a discussion about it. But, anybody that's been in the business a long time probably is going to have something in their past. So it's not, I guess all I'm saying is it's not definitive, but it's a place to start. The second thing is that in this age of privacy, it's hard to get references. People don't want to necessarily be revealed or disclose or whatever. So, if a advisor, has 1 or 2 or 3 apostles within their database that are willing to talk candidly about their relationship with the advisor, that would be good to have those interviews. We work with a lot of attorneys and accountants. And so when somebody asks for a referral, I usually give them an attorney or an accountant or two to talk to. But, we have clients that are more than willing to step up and say, hey, this has been a great experience. So anyway, trust is a very difficult thing because you can't make it happen. Trust is all about who you are as a person and your track record. And I think you certainly have a lot of credentials. I've got 3 master's degrees and a PhD. I've got a lot of credentials. All of the designations. That doesn't mean anything either if you can't apply it. So it's really a personal consideration. It's eyeball to eyeball, one-on-one.
So what are some of the challenges that you guys are facing, right now?
I think the biggest challenge in my mind is staying the course. The 5 Nobel Prizes and the efficient market theory and all of that has been, so well documented and so well written about through the years. And you look at what's happening in our economy today, inflation, the threat of rising interest rates, the broken supply chain, the impact that's going to have on GDP. And, there's the real tendency to want to pull in your horns a little bit, but yet, there is absolutely no evidence that market timing works at all. So I'm trying to stay the course, but do it in a way that is not going to put any of our clients at risk because, most of our clients are 55, 60. They're either nearing retirement or in retirement. And, we have to protect their assets. So we're, looking for all of the ways we can to protect the assets that are compatible with their investment philosophy. Gotcha.
Okay. We've covered a lot of stuff. Time's flying by here. What question have I not asked you that you wish I had?
Well, I think we've covered the waterfront pretty well here. I guess the question is, how do you ever feel confident in making the final decision as to who you want to work with? And I'd say the answer to that question is, it takes time. So, and if you make a mistake, then not only do you lose that time, but you also lose the results of that period of time. I had a doctor I talked to yesterday. He says, my account hasn't grown at all in the last 2 years. Well, he's lost 2 years of time. I know the market's gone up over that period of time and we are the market. So, but I don't want to scare him.
Right.
But I also don't want to be, lack candor with him at the same time. So there's, it's not an easy problem. It's not an easy solution, but it's certainly one worth pursuing.
Right. So if our listeners like what they've heard and they want to talk to you and get some coaching advice from you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, the first thing I would do is go on our website. We've got a very comprehensive website with a lot of educational videos. It's wealth-teams.com. And, that would be a good place to start. And if they like what they see and they like, what's presented there, I'm easy to find. My phone number and emails on the website.
Great. Dr. Baker, we really appreciate your time today and, learned a lot.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's been wonderful to have this opportunity. I love your questions.
Great. Thank you. Today, our guest was Dr. Guy Baker, who's the founder and managing director of the Wealth Team Alliance. See you next week.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.